number of confirmed cases in America rose to over 1 million and over 55,000 Americans died. He had been warned amply by the intelligence community. He was given the expertise of world-class medical professionals. But all of this input fell flat on deaf ears. And now Democrats in the opposition are mulling the idea of setting up an empowered commission over the US's coronavirus response. The warnings, more than a dozen offered during the intelligence briefings in January and February, came at the time when Donald Trump and GOP senators were equating the coronavirus pandemic to the flu, perhaps in a bid to downplay concerns. For weeks, the daily briefings traced the spread of this virus from China, suppressing initial information, to the frightful political and economic consequences. The President of the United States, who is known to not read these briefings and one who brushes off key oral summaries, failed to mobilize his administration for a major pandemic. While travel restrictions were instated between the US and China in late January, Donald Trump spent most of the following month downplaying the threat of this virus. He did not declare a national emergency until the 13th of March. His late announcement caused the stock market to crash. It led to New York, the financial capital of the United States, becoming the epicenter of the coronavirus in America.
We are not happy with China. We are not happy with that whole situation because we believe it could have been stopped at the source. It could have been stopped quickly and it wouldn't have spread all over the world. And we think that should have happened.
Now, Donald Trump says he's not happy. The U.S. administration now plans to seek damages from China. This is reportedly after some calls in Germany that demand China pay reparations to the tune of $165 billion. Trump says the amount his administration would demand from China would be far more, quote-unquote, a lot more than Germany is talking about. There's an observable pattern here of absolving responsibility by laying the blame on others. In Donald Trump's case, it is blaming China and the World Health Organization for the shape which the coronavirus pandemic has taken in America. Remember, Donald Trump on the 14th of April told reporters that the United States was freezing funding for the World Health Organization. The United States, until this point, was the largest contributor to the World Health Organization, offering more than $400 million each year to the organization. Now, the Democrat-led House Foreign Affairs Committee has demanded that the State Department produce documents to explain Donald Trump's decision. The committee wants the minutes of all meetings since December in which the World Health Organization funding was discussed. The congressional panel has given the 4th of May deadline to the State Department to produce these documents. Representative Eliot Engel, the committee chairman, has asked Mike Pompeo for a legal justification on these cuts. After Pearl Harbor and the 9/11, the U.S. administration looked at what went wrong to learn from its mistake. In the attacks on the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001, over 3,000 people died in one fell swoop. The coronavirus has caused over 55,000 deaths in the United States of America, exceeding those of 9/11 by several magnitudes. House Intel Chairman Adam Schiff is proposing a post-9/11 style commission to provide a full accounting of the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus pandemic in America. The measure, co-sponsored by 14 other Democrats on this panel, would establish a 25-member commission. The panel would be given sweeping authority to conduct a comprehensive 18-month investigation with legal power to prosecute. As the coronavirus sweeps across the United States of America, a new independent commission is best suited to look into how America couldn't contain this disease that it knew was coming. A former 9/11 commission member says the move isn't them looking for a political fight. No commission can undo the damage already done, no matter how much empowered it may be. What it can do, however, is to formulate a more efficient response system so that such a disaster isn't repeated again. The panel's power to prosecute will also render swift punishments, especially to those who would willingly jeopardize people's lives, than to temper their reactionary politics in context. These developments will be closely tracked by WION in the weeks to come. Now, we are now joined by national security reporter of the Washington Post, Greg Miller, live from Maryland in USA. Greg, this is a huge story that we are tracking from America. And can you give us more details about this proposed committee and what likely is it likely to probe against Donald Trump? What are the briefings that he is said to have ignored, and will this panel have any legal authority?
Well, I think it's too early to answer some of those questions. It's not clear yet that that this commission will become a reality. I think that will take several months for us to figure out in the United States. Right now, it's been proposed and called for by an influential member of Congress. But of course, President Trump has Republican allies in the Senate who would probably rather not see an investigation of this sort. If it comes, and I think there's still a good chance that we will have some kind of commission or investigation in the United States, then I think one of the things that commission will look at very closely is what did the president know and when? When was he told certain information about the coronavirus? And the daily briefs that U.S. intelligence agencies prepare for him will become very, very important for that kind of inquiry. They will want to look at what was included in those briefings, when were they relayed to the White House, and did the president even bother to read them?
Absolutely. If anyone just looks at the numbers coming in from across America, more than 1 million people in America alone have been infected by this disease. By any stretch of imagination, by any parameters, it is a disaster as far as the U.S. is concerned. How many meetings or how many briefings is the U.S. president or was he given? Till America declared a state of emergency before that came in early March, I believe. What were the steps taken to prevent such a disaster in the United States?
So what our story today reports, and this is new information, is that the coronavirus, the threat of it, the spread of it, was mentioned in at least 12 briefings that were prepared for the president in January and February. The first of these came in very early January, and it spoke of an outbreak in China. It raised concerns about the Chinese possibly suppressing information about this outbreak. But this was an important marker. It indicates that the president was informed about this very, very early on, much earlier than the public, of course, knew that this was a serious threat. And those warnings continued, deep into February and into March, at a time when the president continued to really downplay the virus. Even into very late in February and early March, he was saying things like, there are only 15 cases in the United States, it's going to go down to 0, it will all go away like a miracle, it's just like the flu, it doesn't pose a danger to anybody.
Right.
And of course, as you just said, there are now 1 million people in the United States infected with this. It didn't go down to 0.
What Donald Trump is saying now, he's laying the blame squarely on China and the World Health Organization. Donald Trump says that China has hidden the scale of this epidemic and that the World Health Organization is too China-centric. But does this absolve him of the responsibility of leading America's battle against COVID-19?
Well, I think that Donald Trump is not the only one who's very critical of China at this point. I mean, and there is a lot of evidence and growing evidence that China suppressed information about the scale and the magnitude of this virus. And of course, it appears to have originated in China. So it's fair to ask a lot of questions about China. But Donald Trump, the president here, is president here in the United States, and his responsibility is to protect the American public. And all through February, he was basically telling people this was nothing to worry about. His administration did not appear to use that time to prepare a diagnostic test that could be used to determine whether Americans were infected with this virus. It wasn't until deep into March that he finally started speaking about this as a serious threat. And by then, it was up to state governors, right? Not the president of the United States. It was governors of California and New York who started ordering people to stay in their homes, to shut schools down, close businesses, close restaurants. And they were much more aggressive than the president was.
Right. Greg Miller, thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep an eye out on this story, certainly, and we'll also keep our viewers informed of the developing situation.